A day before Christmas, Mom said, your job is to clean and cook for your sister's 17 friends. I pretended to agree. That night, I booked a flight to Hawaii. When they walked in and saw nothing prepared, they froze. And I hadn't even told them the biggest news. I, 26M, sat at the kitchen table when Mom dropped the bomb. It was December 23rd, and she'd just finished listing everything I needed to do for my sister's Christmas Eve party. Clean the entire house top to bottom. Prep ingredients for a full holiday spread. Cook for 18 people. Set up decorations. Be available to serve drinks and clean up during the party. Oh, and make myself scarce when the actual celebration started because I'd make things awkward. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came. She explained it like she was asking me to pick up milk from the store. My sister was having 17 friends over for her annual Christmas Eve gathering, and since I was living at home anyway, it only made sense that I contribute. After all, I wasn't paying rent. Never mind that I'd moved back 6 months ago after my downtown apartment became unaffordable when my company downsized my department. Never mind that I'd been sending Mom money for groceries and utilities since week 1. Never mind that my sister was 23, employed full-time, and perfectly capable of hosting her own party. I asked Mom if my sister knew about this arrangement. Mom waved her hand dismissively and said, of course, they discussed it yesterday. My sister thought it was a great solution since she'd be too busy getting ready and entertaining to worry about food. The familiar weight settled in my chest. This wasn't new. This was the pattern I'd been living with for 26 years. My sister had always been the golden child. Prettier, more outgoing, more successful in Mom's eyes. When she wanted to go to an expensive private college, our parents took out loans. When I'd asked about college, Dad told me community college was more practical and I should be grateful for the opportunity. When she wrecked her car at 19, they bought her a new one. When I needed a car for my first job, they'd co-signed a loan that I paid off myself. I'd stopped keeping score years ago because the math never worked in my favor. But this felt different. This felt like I'd stopped being a person to them entirely and had become just a convenient solution to problems I didn't create. I told Mom I'd think about it. She looked surprised that I hadn't immediately agreed, and her face hardened in that way it did when she was about to lecture me about family obligation and gratitude. I stood up before she could start, said I needed to check something for work, and went to my room. My room. That was generous. It was the converted storage space above the garage, accessible by an external staircase. 12 by 12 feet with a slanted ceiling, a window that didn't quite close right, and insulation that gave up around October. I'd been sleeping in thermal layers for weeks. I sat on my bed and opened my laptop. My bank account showed a balance that made my stomach twist. I'd been saving aggressively since moving back, skipping lunches, avoiding friends, putting every extra dollar away. I'd almost reached my goal for first and last month's rent on a new place. Almost. Then I opened my email and saw the message I'd been waiting for. The job offer. The position I'd interviewed for 3 weeks ago in Austin. Better title, better pay, better everything. They wanted me to start January 15th. I'd applied without telling anyone. After the downsizing, I'd realized my company wasn't going anywhere good, and neither was my career if I stayed. I'd been sending out applications for months, getting nowhere, until this one callback turned into 2 interviews, and now an offer. I read through the details again. Relocation assistance included. Signing bonus. Benefits starting day 1. It was everything I'd been working toward. Mom knocked on my door an hour later. She didn't wait for me to answer before climbing the stairs and pushing it open. She asked if I'd thought about tomorrow and reminded me that family helps family. She said my sister was counting on me and that it would really hurt her feelings if I let her down on Christmas. I looked at Mom standing in my doorway, and something in me just broke. Not dramatically, not with anger, just a quiet crack, like ice giving way. I told her I'd handle it. She smiled, patted my shoulder, and said she knew I'd come through. She reminded me to start early because the house needed deep cleaning and the grocery shopping alone would take hours. She'd made a list. She left the list on my desk. For pages. Single-spaced. I waited until I heard her car pull out of the driveway. She was going to my sister's apartment to help her pick an outfit for tomorrow. They'd probably get dinner after. They'd probably talk about the party and how nice it would be. They probably wouldn't mention me at all. I opened a new browser tab and searched for flights to Hawaii. I'd never been. I'd always wanted to go, but there was never time or money or a good enough reason. I found a flight leaving at 6 a.m. on Christmas Eve. It cost more than I wanted to spend, but I had my savings. I had my signing bonus coming. I had nothing left to lose here. I booked it. Round trip, returning December 30th. Then I booked a hotel in Waikiki. Nothing fancy, but it had an ocean view and was mine. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. I was actually doing this. I started packing. I didn't have much worth taking. Most of my stuff was still in boxes anyway. I pulled out my suitcase and filled it with beach clothes, sunscreen, and the book I'd been meaning to read for months. I charged my phone and laptop. I set 3 alarms for 4 a.m. Then I sat down and wrote 2 letters. The first was to my parents. I kept it short. I thanked them for letting me stay, but explained I'd accepted a job in Austin and would be moving in January. I apologized for the short notice, but noted that I'd be out of their space soon. I didn't mention the party. I didn't mention anything about how they'd treated me. There was no point. They wouldn't understand, and I was done trying to make them see me. The second letter was to my sister. This one was harder. I'd spent my whole life being her older brother, protecting her, supporting her, loving her even when she didn't seem to notice I existed. I told her I hoped her party went well and that she had a wonderful Christmas. I told her I'd accepted a new job and was moving away. I wished her the best. I meant it, even if it hurt. I left both letters on the kitchen counter where they'd find them. I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about their faces when they realized I was gone. Mom frantically calling my phone. My sister panicking about the food. Dad probably angry that I'd embarrassed them. Part of me felt guilty. A larger part felt free. My alarms went off at 4 a.m. I was already awake. I showered, dressed, grabbed my suitcase, and crept downstairs. The house was dark and quiet. My rental car was parked on the street. I'd specifically kept it there instead of in the driveway, so I could leave without waking anyone. I loaded my bag, took one last look at the house where I'd grown up, and drove away. The airport was 40 minutes away, and traffic was non-existent on Christmas Eve morning. I checked in, went through security, and sat at my gate watching the sky lighten outside the windows. My phone stayed silent. They were all still asleep, probably dreaming about the perfect Christmas they had planned. I boarded my flight. I found my window seat. I turned off my phone, and when the plane lifted into the air, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. Peace. Hawaii was everything I'd imagined. The hotel check-in clerk was friendly and efficient. My room was small but clean, and the ocean view was real. I changed into shorts, grabbed sunscreen, and went straight to the beach. The sand was warm under my feet. The water was impossibly blue. I walked for an hour, just breathing, just existing without anyone needing anything from me. I turned my phone on that evening. 63 missed calls. 47 text messages. I scrolled through them without reading most. Mom was frantic. Dad was furious. My sister was hurt and angry. Some extended family had apparently gotten involved, calling me selfish and inconsiderate. I deleted the group chat notification without reading it. I responded to one message from Dad with a simple text. I told him I was safe. I'd left letters explaining everything, and I needed space. I asked him not to contact me until after New Year's. Then I turned my phone off again. I spent Christmas Day snorkeling. I'd never done it before, and I was terrible at it, but I saw fish in colors I didn't know existed. I ate dinner alone at a restaurant overlooking the water and didn't feel lonely at all. I felt present. The days blurred together in the best way. I hiked. I swam. I read my book cover to cover and started another. I talked to other travelers and learned about their lives. I tried foods I'd never heard of. I watched the sunset every single evening and didn't take a single photo because I wanted to just experience it. Update 1. On December 28th, I turned my phone back on. The messages had slowed. Mom had sent a long text saying she was disappointed in me and didn't understand why I'd hurt the family like this. My sister sent a shorter one saying the party had been ruined and her friends had to order pizza, and she'd never forgive me for embarrassing her. Dad hadn't messaged at all. I had one message from my uncle, Mom's brother. He'd apparently heard about the situation and wanted to check if I was okay. He said he'd heard bits and pieces and that it sounded like things had been hard for a while. He told me to call him when I was ready. I called him that evening from my hotel balcony. He answered on the second ring and asked where I was. I told him Hawaii, and he laughed, actually laughed, and said good for me. We talked for over an hour. I told him everything. The years of being overlooked, the party demand, the job offer, the decision to leave. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he told me something I didn't know. He said he'd watched this pattern my whole life and had tried talking to Mom about it years ago. She'd shut him down completely, insisting she treated both her children equally and that he was seeing problems that didn't exist. He'd backed off because he didn't want to cause family drama, but he'd always felt guilty about it. He said he should have been there for me more. I told him it wasn't his fault. I told him I'd made my choice and was good with it. He asked about the job in Austin. I told him the details, and he sounded genuinely excited for me. He offered to help with the move if I needed it. He said his guest room was open if I needed a place to crash between leaving home and starting the new job. I felt something crack open in my chest. Good cracks this time. The kind that let light in. Before we hung up, he told me to make sure I read my work email. He said it sounded like I'd been avoiding everything, but some things might be important. I opened my laptop after we disconnected. My work email had several messages from HR about exit paperwork and final paychecks. Standard stuff. But there was another email that made me sit up straight. It was from the CEO of my current company. He'd apparently heard about my resignation and wanted to talk. He mentioned that the company was restructuring after the downsizing and that they'd identified me as someone they wanted to retain. He asked if I'd be willing to have a conversation about a promotion and significant raise before making my final decision to leave. I stared at the email for a long time. 6 months ago, this would have been everything I wanted. Recognition, value, a reason to stay. Now it felt hollow. They'd had 6 months to notice I existed. They'd had 6 months to recognize my work. They waited until I was leaving to care. I drafted a polite response. I thanked him for reaching out, but explained I'd already accepted another position and was committed to that path. I wished the company well. I hit send and closed my laptop. Update 2. I returned home on December 30th. Not home, my parents' house. The distinction felt important. I took a rideshare from the airport. It was late afternoon, and both my parents' cars were in the driveway. I'd texted Dad that morning to let him know I'd be collecting my belongings that evening and would be out by the next day. Mom opened the door before I could use my key. Her face was pinched and tired. She asked where I'd been, even though I knew Dad had told her. I said Hawaii, and she flinched like I'd slapped her. She told me to come inside. The house felt different. Smaller somehow. Dad was sitting in the living room. He looked older than I remembered. He asked if I'd had a nice vacation, and there was something bitter in his tone. I told them I hadn't come to argue. I explained I'd be packing my things and staying with my uncle until I moved to Austin in 2 weeks. I told them I'd already signed the lease on an apartment and would be out of their space permanently. Mom's face crumpled. She said she didn't understand why I was doing this. She insisted they'd always tried their best with me and that I was throwing away family over one party. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized she genuinely believed that. In her mind, this was about Christmas Eve. She couldn't see the accumulated weight of 26 years. I told her it wasn't about one party. I told her it was about never feeling like I was enough, never feeling valued, never feeling seen. I told her about the college loans, the car, the room above the garage, the constant expectation that I'd be grateful for scraps while my sister got full meals. She started crying. She said I was being cruel and unfair. Dad cut in. He said if I wanted to leave, I should leave, but I didn't need to hurt my mother on the way out. He said family was supposed to stick together, and I was choosing to be alone. Something in me finally snapped clean through. I told him I wasn't choosing to be alone. I was choosing to be somewhere I mattered. I told him I'd spent years trying to be the son they wanted, trying to be good enough, trying to earn the same love and attention they gave my sister automatically. I was done trying. I went upstairs to pack. My sister's car pulled into the driveway while I was loading boxes into my uncle's truck. He'd come to help without me even asking. She got out and just stood there, staring at me. She asked if I was really leaving. I told her yes. She said she didn't understand why I was being so dramatic. She said it was just a party, and I'd ruined her Christmas over nothing. I put down the box I was holding. I asked her if she knew how much I'd paid our parents in groceries and utilities over the past 6 months. She looked confused. I told her the number. Her eyes widened. I asked her if she knew I'd been sleeping in a room that barely had heat. She said she'd never been up there. I asked her if she knew I'd been saving every dollar to move out, skipping meals, working extra hours. She didn't respond. I told her I loved her. I told her I hoped she had a good life and that Mom and Dad gave her everything she needed. I told her I was done being invisible. She started to cry, but I couldn't tell if it was genuine emotion or manipulation. I didn't wait to find out. My uncle and I finished loading my stuff. It fit in his truck and my car. 26 years of life in 2 vehicles. As we pulled away, I saw all 3 of them standing in the driveway watching us leave. Mom was still crying. Dad had his arm around her. My sister looked lost. I didn't look back again. Update 3. I moved to Austin on January 12th. My uncle helped me drive down, and we made a road trip out of it. We stopped at weird roadside attractions and ate at local diners. We talked about everything and nothing. He told me stories about Mom when they were kids that made her seem human and flawed and real. My apartment was small but mine. 1 bedroom, big windows, a kitchen where I could actually cook for myself. I spent the first night sitting on my air mattress eating pizza and feeling more at home than I had in 6 months. I started my new job on January 15th. The office was modern and bright. My team was welcoming. My boss remembered my name and actually seemed interested in my ideas. On my 3rd day, someone asked if I wanted to get lunch with the group, and I almost cried because it was such a simple gesture of inclusion. The work was challenging but good. I was learning, growing, contributing. People noticed. People said thank you. People treated me like I mattered because I did. I talked to my uncle regularly. He'd been fielding calls from Mom, trying to mediate. He told me Mom wanted to apologize and reconnect. I told him I wasn't ready yet. Maybe someday, but not now. I needed time to figure out who I was without the weight of their expectations crushing me. My sister texted me once. She said she'd been thinking about what I'd said and that maybe I had a point about some things. She said she missed me. I didn't respond immediately. I needed to figure out what relationship, if any, I wanted with her going forward. Dad never reached out. I wasn't surprised. But here's what I didn't tell any of them when I left. The biggest news I mentioned in my dramatic airport exit. The thing that made all of this possible, that gave me the courage to book that flight and walk away. The job offer included a significant signing bonus, enough to cover my moving costs and then some. But more than that, my new company had profit sharing, real profit sharing, and they just closed their biggest deal in company history. My first paycheck hit my account yesterday. With the signing bonus, the relocation assistance, and the profit sharing payout, I had more money in my bank account than I'd ever had in my life. Not rich, but stable. Secure. Free. I could afford therapy now. I'd already scheduled my first appointment. I could afford to travel. I was planning a trip to see my uncle this summer. I could afford to build a life that was mine, on my terms, without apology. Last night, I sat on my balcony with a beer and watched the sunset over Austin. My phone buzzed with a message from a coworker asking if I wanted to join their game night on Friday. I said yes. I thought about my family. I thought about that kitchen table conversation on December 23rd. I thought about the look on Mom's face when she told me to clean and cook for my sister's party like it was the most reasonable request in the world. And I thought about the moment I booked that flight to Hawaii. The moment I chose myself. I don't regret it. Not even a little bit. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic or confrontational. Sometimes it's just living well. It's choosing peace over chaos. It's building a life where you're not an afterthought, but the main character. I'm not sure if my family will ever understand what they did or why I left. I'm not sure if we'll ever repair what was broken. But I'm finally okay with that uncertainty because I know one thing for sure. I'm free, and that's worth everything.